One evening, after eating the cake my husband brought home to celebrate our anniversary, I suddenly collapsed. It happened about half an hour after I ate the cake. Our daughter was scared and crying, begging for help, but my husband didn't seem to care. He just smiled oddly and said, "Don't worry, she'll be fine." Then, he walked out, leaving me struggling and our daughter in tears. I had a feeling he was going to tell someone that his plan had worked. "Mom, are you okay?" my daughter asked through her tears. I tried to comfort her and said, "I'm all right, sweetheart." Slowly, I stood up and gave her a reassuring smile to calm her down, but in reality, I knew I was the one who had actually succeeded in a plan, one they didn't know about. They would soon face the consequences of what they had done. I'm Mia, a 32-year-old office worker. I live with my 6-year-old daughter, Emma, and my husband, Ryan, who is also 32. We used to be a happy family. Ryan was once a caring husband and a loving father, but about a year ago, he started acting distant and cold towards me. I couldn't understand why. I kept wondering if I had done something wrong, but nothing came to mind. One day, Ryan said to me, "You haven't aged well, have you? Well, you're 32 now, an old hag." His words hurt me deeply, especially since we were the same age. "That's harsh, we're the same age," I replied, confused and upset. He continued, "Your clothes and makeup are outdated and uncool. Why don't you dress up like other people?" This sudden, hurtful criticism shocked me. Ryan had never been like this before. I couldn't understand why he was acting this way, and it made me feel sad and confused. Then, my daughter, Emma, stepped in and said, "Mom is beautiful, don't talk to her like that." Emma quickly defended me, but Ryan just clicked his tongue in annoyance and left the house. His terrible behavior wasn't just in his words. Sometimes, he completely ignored me. Even when I woke up early to make him lunch, he would get angry if he didn't like what I made. "What is this? Don't put frozen food in there. You're being lazy," he would shout. Once, he even had the nerve to throw the lunch I prepared into the trash. "That's so unfair. I only used one frozen item. I woke up early to make the other dishes fresh," I explained, feeling hurt. Emma always defended me, saying, "Mom's cooking is delicious," but even that seemed to annoy Ryan. "Emma, you don't understand. Your mom isn't doing her job properly, and that's why I'm advising her," Ryan replied coldly. "That's not true. Mom's doing her best. It's Dad who's wrong," Emma argued back. "You've really got our daughter wrapped around your finger, haven't you?" Ryan glared at me with disgust. The kindness I once knew in him was completely gone. We used to rarely fight, so I had no idea what had caused such a drastic change in Ryan. There was something else that was bothering me, too. Ryan, who had never been very enthusiastic about his job, suddenly started coming home late, saying he had to work overtime. He even began working on weekends. I couldn't help but wonder, was he having an affair? I had a bad feeling about his suspicious behavior, but I didn't have any proof. Part of me still wanted to believe in him. After all, he was still providing for our family and was a loving father to our daughter. I kept hoping that Ryan's bad mood would pass and that he'd go back to being the kind person he used to be. But then, something troubling happened. One day, when I updated our savings passbook, the account we were using to save for Emma's future education, I noticed the balance had gone down. Over the past 6 months, there had been several withdrawals, first $500, then $1,000, until a total of $10,000 was missing. The only other person who could access that account was Ryan. I confronted him, saying, "The money we've been saving for Emma is missing. Did you take it out?" Ryan casually replied, "Yeah, I lent it to a friend who was in debt." I was shocked. "Who is this friend you're helping by using Emma's savings?" "It's none of your business," he said dismissively, showing no guilt. It was also strange that he had withdrawn the money in small amounts over time, supposedly to lend to this friend. "That money was for Emma's future," I protested. "So what? It's my money, since the account is in my name. Stop complaining." "That's not fair. I work too, and I've been putting money into that account," I argued. Ryan suddenly snapped. "Shut up," he shouted, grabbing the remote control and throwing it at me. It missed my face by inches. "What are you doing? That's dangerous," I yelled, shocked by his outburst. "As my wife, how dare you boss me around? You should just obey me," Ryan snarled, refusing to listen to anything I said. Our relationship grew even more strained, and I didn't know how things had gotten so bad. I was worried about what to do, and trying to reconcile seemed impossible. One night, I woke up late and heard Ryan talking on his cell phone on the balcony. He was saying something shocking, looking forward to executing it on our wedding anniversary. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was this some kind of joke? I felt a deep sadness, realizing how much Ryan's love for me had faded. At the same time, I was terrified of what he might be planning. I kept hoping that Ryan's bad mood would pass and that he'd go back to being the kind person he used to be. But then, something troubling happened. One day, when I updated our savings passbook, the account we were using to save for Emma's future education, I noticed the balance had gone down. Over the past 6 months, there had been several withdrawals, first $500, then $1,000, until a total of $10,000 was missing. The only other person who could access that account was Ryan. I confronted him, saying, "The money we've been saving for Emma is missing. Did you take it out?" Ryan casually replied, "Yeah, I lent it to a friend who was in debt." I was shocked. "Who is this friend you're helping by using Emma's savings?" "It's none of your business," he said dismissively, showing no guilt. It was also strange that he had withdrawn the money in small amounts over time, supposedly to lend to this friend. "That money was for Emma's future," I protested. "So what? It's my money, since the account is in my name. Stop complaining." "That's not fair. I work too, and I've been putting money into that account," I argued. Ryan suddenly snapped. "Shut up," he shouted, grabbing the remote control and throwing it at me. It missed my face by inches. "What are you doing? That's dangerous," I yelled, shocked by his outburst. "As my wife, how dare you boss me around? You should just obey me," Ryan snarled, refusing to listen to anything I said. Our relationship grew even more strained, and I didn't know how things had gotten so bad. I was worried about what to do, and trying to reconcile seemed impossible. One night, I woke up late and heard Ryan talking on his cell phone on the balcony. He was saying something shocking, looking forward to executing it on our wedding anniversary. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was this some kind of joke? I felt a deep sadness, realizing how much Ryan's love for me had faded. At the same time, I was terrified of what he might be planning. But I knew that the bouquet Ryan chose wasn't just because it was simple and modest. He had other reasons for picking it. "Could you put it in a vase right now?" Ryan asked. "I understand. Thank you for the beautiful flowers," I replied, pretending to be grateful. After arranging the flowers and enjoying a pleasant meal together, it was time for dessert. The cake Ryan brought had 3 flavors: chocolate, strawberry, and cheesecake. Looking at the cakes, I deliberately said to Emma, "Hey, Emma, I want to eat the chocolate cake today. Could you let me have it?" Emma looked a bit surprised and said, "But I always eat the chocolate." "Okay, I'll let you have it this time." I noticed Ryan suddenly tense up when he heard our conversation. "I'll have the cheesecake," I said. Before Emma could take her cake, Ryan quickly stopped her. He seemed flustered and scrambled for an excuse. "Wait, the cheesecake has a little bit of alcohol in it. The shop assistant told me Emma shouldn't eat it." Ryan's panic was almost funny. He quickly grabbed the strawberry cake before either Emma or I could. "You're eating that?" I asked. Yeah, I love strawberries," Ryan replied, trying to sound casual. "That's new to me," I said, surprised. Meanwhile, Emma happily started eating her favorite chocolate cake. As I chose the cheesecake, I noticed Ryan smirking. He quickly finished his portion of cake. As I reached for mine, he swallowed hard and said, "It's tough when you stare like that. Why don't you and Emma go take a bath first? I'll enjoy my cake afterward." Ryan laughed it off and took Emma to the bath. As they left, I made sure to say out loud, "All right, time to enjoy my cake." When Ryan came out of the bath later, he glanced at the remains of the cheesecake I had eaten and his face relaxed with relief. 10 minutes later, I started clutching my chest and called out for help. "My chest hurts. Help me," I gasped, then collapsed on the dining room floor, pretending to be in agony. "Papa, Mommy is foaming at the mouth and collapsed. Help," Emma screamed, terrified. Emma called out to Ryan, who was watching TV in the living room. Despite seeing me struggling, he remained cold and said, "Don't worry, just leave her," and then walked out of the house, leaving Emma upset and me lying on the floor. I knew exactly where he was going. Once I was sure he had left, I stood up, just as I thought. I said, "Emma," surprised to see me recover so quickly, asked, "Mom, are you okay?" "Sorry, Emma, it was just a prank," I explained. Emma burst into a mix of laughter and tears, relieved that I was fine. Later, after I tucked Emma into bed, I heard the front door open. Ryan had come back home. He called out into the dark room, Emma, are you there? I brought Mama some medicine. It's going to be okay now. From the shadows, I silently stepped behind him and tapped his shoulder. What do you mean, it's going to be okay? I asked. Ryan screamed in shock and fell to the floor. Why are you still alive? He blurted out. He quickly tried to cover his tracks. No. When I saw you collapse, I ran outside to get help, but there was no one around, so I thought I'd go buy some stomach medicine. I see. How kind of you, I said calmly. I'm glad you're relieved to see me better. Ryan, thinking he had convinced me, relaxed a bit, but I wasn't fooled. You've got some nerve, lying like that. So, where's the stomach medicine you bought? I asked. Ryan stammered. Did I forget it at the pharmacy? I shook my head at his weak attempt to lie. Then, without saying anything, I pulled my phone from my pocket and played an audio recording. On the recording, Ryan's voice said, "Soon, I'll be with you and the money. Is that flour really that dangerous? I need to make sure our daughter doesn't accidentally eat it." Ryan's face turned pale. Where did you get that? He asked, panicking. About 2 weeks ago, you were on the balcony late at night, talking to someone on the phone. I overheard your suspicious conversation, I replied. I recorded the conversation right away, I said. But you ate the cake. You were foaming at the mouth and collapsed. How? Ryan asked, confused. Of course, I wouldn't eat the cake knowing it was poisoned, I explained. I only pretended to eat it. I kept the real cake as evidence. I showed him the cheesecake in a plastic bag. The foam was just meringue made from egg whites. You tricked me, Ryan shouted. No, Ryan, it was you who tricked me. I found out about your plan when I checked your computer, I said. Ryan's plan was simple but cruel. He was going to give me flowers and cake for our anniversary, but he had secretly coated the cake with poison from the flour. His idea was that if the police investigated, it would look like I poisoned myself by handling the flowers and eating the cake without washing my hands. Suddenly, Ryan moved toward me with anger in his eyes. Give me that evidence. Don't even think about it, I said. I've already called the police, and they'll be here soon. Plus, this room is under surveillance. Everything is recorded. What? You're lying, Ryan said, panicking. He fell to the floor, begging, please. I was persuaded by another woman. I didn't want to do it. Tell the police it was a misunderstanding. Please. It's too late, I replied calmly. But what about Emma? Don't you care that she'll grow up without a father? Ryan pleaded. It's better than her being with someone who tried to take my life, I said coldly. Ryan was now on the floor, crying and begging, but I didn't feel sorry for him. At that moment, the police arrived, and Ryan was arrested, still screaming and crying as they took him away. After that, both Ryan and his mistress were found guilty of trying to kill me. Of course, I divorced him and demanded $2,000 in damages and $10,000 in child support. His parents kindly paid the money and promised to make him work to repay everything after he was released from prison. I also demanded $2,000 in damages from his mistress. Her parents paid, but she was disowned and fired from her job at Ryan's company. She now faces a hard life for her crimes. Emma and I moved back to my parents' house, where we are living peacefully and happily. To protect Emma, I told her that her father had gone far away for work, surrounded by love from me and my parents. My daughter is growing up healthy and strong. Watching her thrive makes me determined to keep raising her with all my heart.
I'm just saying it's time for you to leave. Can't you look at yourself in the mirror and feel embarrassed? Are you embarrassed by me? Yes, it's everything. It's frustrating that even my close friends and boss are here. Thinking that people will find out you're becoming part of the family is embarrassing. My name is Melanie. I was born with a physical condition, and as you can see, I use a wheelchair instead of my legs. I grew up in a family of 4. My parents, who are now in heaven, and my lively brother Anthony. My late parents raised me with just as much love and care as any other child, showering me with affection. My slightly overprotective but kind brother Anthony has always been a strong supporter. That's how I've been living a happy life. And now, Madam CEO, here's the schedule for this month. I'm grateful and happy to be busy, but I do wish for a little break. In fact, despite my appearance, I'm the CEO of a company. Even though my body is different from others, I do my best in what I can do. That thought drove me to study hard, not wanting to be outdone by others. Being naturally competitive, my hard work paid off, and I was able to start my own business. While I'm discussing the schedule with my secretary, excuse me, I've got a call. Hello, Anthony, what's up? Hey, sorry to bother you when you're busy. Actually, I'm getting married, so I wanted to tell you first. Melanie, really? Congratulations. What's the person like? We met through work. A kind person, really good at cooking and housework. Just wonderful. That's great. As your sister, I'm relieved you found someone. Stop talking like our mom, will you? Well, I was just worried if you could really find someone wonderful. Haha, well, the wedding is set for 2 months from now. That's quite sudden, isn't it? With how things are nowadays. We just thought it was the right time. I'm sorry it's all so rushed, but can you make it, Melanie? Of course, I'll be there. It's your wedding after all. I'll make it work, no matter what. Oh, but you better make it to my wedding too. Thanks. Wait, your wedding, Melanie? I haven't heard anything about it. Haha, don't work too hard. Okay, see you. As I frantically managed my work schedule for the wedding, my secretary watched over me with a warm gaze. Being in different industries, my brother and I are both busy people. Despite never having met his fiancée even once, the day of the wedding arrived. As I was about to enter the venue, "Hey, you there. Wait a moment." "Oh, are you talking to me? Aren't you, by any chance?" "What? It's obvious, isn't it? I'm the bride, the star of today's show. Nice to meet you. I'm Melanie, Anthony's sister. I'm glad to meet you. By chance, I met Victoria, the bride." I greeted her, but her attitude seemed off somehow. While I found Victoria's demeanor odd and was wondering about it suddenly. "Hey, what's with this woman? I can't believe this. Victoria, what happened all of a sudden? Don't touch me, please. I wasn't informed about having a sister with such a condition. I knew Anthony had a sister, but not like this. I had no idea you were like this." It seemed Victoria didn't approve of my appearance. The reason she seemed displeased when we greeted each other was apparently this. "What's the matter with you? I don't care if you're Anthony's sister or whatever. That's a separate matter. How will you compensate if you infect me with something? Please calm down. There's nothing about me that you can catch. Keep quiet. Your droplets are spreading. I can't believe this. People like you should have been mentioned beforehand. Finding this out on the same day as the wedding is the worst. What about me is the worst? You should figure it out yourself, right? Besides, Anthony and I are getting married, so I'll have to interact with you whether I like it or not. If people find out that someone like you is my sister-in-law, I'll be humiliated in front of everyone." "Use your head a bit." "Use my head? What do you mean?" "I'm saying you should be considerate enough to leave. Can't you look at yourself in the mirror and feel ashamed?" "Embarrassment? Am I an embarrassment to you?" "Yes, all of it. Everything. Ah, it's so frustrating. Even my close friends and boss are here. And to think that people will find out that you're becoming part of the family is embarrassing. Do you always think like this? Huh, that's none of your business. Since I've caught Anthony, the CEO, don't you dare get in my way. I was certain that my brother was being deceived by Victoria, who was clearly putting on an act. My brother, who was always kind and never got angry at all, had also been caught by a strange woman. Before, while remembering those times, I didn't want to cause any more commotion and spoil my brother's wedding further. Thinking of how important this day was for my dear brother, I decided, then I'll be leaving now. I'll just leave the gift here. Huh? I don't need money from someone like you who doesn't look like they could hold a decent job. You're just leeching off Anthony anyway, aren't you? I bet your gift is something measly, like $5, right? Is that so? Then I'll take this gift of $50,000 back with me. It's quite heavy though. $50,000. Wait. If you had that kind of money, you should have said so earlier. I'll take it. Sorry, I've already put it away. It's impossible now. I'll be leaving then. No, you leave that gift here. And why do you even have that much money? Huh, I see now. That's money you took from Anthony, isn't it? No, actually, I run a company that develops skateboarding equipment with a global reputation. Despite how I look, I do make an annual revenue of $500 million. So, a gift like this is. Then all the more reason to leave that $50,000 here. I'll use it for Anthony and my happiness. Honestly, I don't approve of your marriage with my brother. I can't accept someone like you who's only after his money marrying him. Stop raising your voice. It's your fault for being deceived. What's all this about, Anthony? When did you get here? Looking towards the voice, I saw my brother had appeared at some point. A shocked Victoria said, this is... Well, what are you talking about, brother? No, it's not like that. I'm not after the money at all. I just genuinely wanted to support and be there for you, Anthony. Don't say such things. Hey, Victoria, what did you say to my precious sister, Melanie? What did you mean by what you said to Melanie, Anthony? Ahaha. Why are you so angry? It doesn't matter to me if you're after my money or whatever. You can do as you like. It's my responsibility. And even if we break up someday, I won't be angry. But what I absolutely won't forgive is you disrespecting my dear Melanie. I was very surprised to see my usually gentle and never angry brother raise his voice. But I also felt genuinely happy to hear him standing up for me. Meanwhile, Victoria, scolded by my brother, was, well, then she can attend the wedding. Okay, so first, Anthony, let's calm down, all right? What do you mean she can attend? We don't need your permission after all. Do you really think I'd go through with a wedding with someone who has been so cruel to Melanie, the most important person in my world? There's no way that's happening. Is there? Why not? I just said your sister can come. That doesn't matter anymore. I can't and won't become family with a woman who insults my family. We're breaking off the wedding? Off the wedding? Why? Both Melanie and I were left by our parents who went to heaven when we still wanted them around. Melanie cried out of loneliness. But you know, she tried to cheer me up when she saw me down. Even though she wanted to cry herself, she held it back and instead gave me the brightest smile. At that time, she was just a kid in elementary school, and I was already in high school, a grown man. She held back her tears so much more than me and told me to smile. That's how I got back my strength. Brother, you remembered that? Of course I do. How could I forget? You were holding back so many tears but still managed to smile. I still remember that smile of yours to this day. That's why, even when work gets tough, I think of her smile and it keeps me going. She tried to do house chores she had only learned in home economics, but never actually done, and before I knew it, she wasn't just making meals. She was preparing lunches too. Melanie and I supported each other through life like that. I won't forgive a woman who insults such an important family member. Apologize to Melanie. Supporting each other? Really, that's so exaggerated. Take back every single thing you said to Melanie. Look into Melanie's eyes and apologize properly. Don't say anything else. My brother repeatedly insisted that Victoria apologize to me for the disrespect she showed. We siblings have had our struggles that only we can understand. Maybe that's also why it felt like an insult. As I stood there unable to do anything but watch my brother, someone approached us. Sorry to interrupt, just popping in here. Hey, do you even understand what kind of company you're working for? What? Why is the CEO here? You see, Anthony has helped me a lot in business, you know, and we even go out for meals together when we have the time in our private lives. Isn't our company a distributor of sporting equipment? Yet your attitude and behavior are utterly unacceptable from any angle. Wait, Henry, why are you here? I'm sorry you had to witness such an unpleasant scene. But do you know Melanie? I had no idea at all. I'm also surprised to learn that Anthony's dear sister is none other than Melanie. I'm in a relationship with Melanie, and I want to marry her. So I'm seeking my brother-in-law's permission. This is what I've been thinking of daily, really bringing this up right now. And suddenly slipping into brother-in-law mode. Typical Henry, this is Henry for you. Melanie is getting married to Henry, but I trust you, Henry. I know you'll take good care of Melanie. No, why is there such a sudden happy atmosphere? Anthony, I swear to devote my life to making Melanie happy. I'm confident I won't lose to you, Anthony. Please allow me to marry Melanie. And you're saying this right now? Here. The one who appeared was my boyfriend, Henry, who also happens to be the CEO of Victoria's company. Henry has been mingling with my brother both in business and private life, but neither of them knew how we were all connected. So their surprise was evident. Victoria, witnessing all this, said, "Wait a minute? What? So this woman is the girlfriend of our company CEO, and Anthony, the savvy entrepreneur, is her sibling. That's too lucky." Even if it's luck, it's Melanie who paved her way. She's always been desperate to find what she could do. She's faced everything head-on, used her brains, and worked hard to get where she is now. Don't belittle her success as merely good luck. And just so you know, she just became my fiancée a moment ago. So you understand? Understand what it means to insult the woman I'm marrying, right? So what if I did? I don't know if it's a girlfriend or fiancé or Melanie or whatever. What's a CEO going to do, huh? It's just personal stuff anyway, right? Well, yes, but there are clients here, and the company's name is involved, right? Your remarks, Victoria, are a serious issue. It's a pretty problematic statement in general. In my company, that would easily be grounds for dismissal. I also don't want to deal with a company that harbors such individuals. Wait, you can't just fire me. That's going to be a problem. I apologize. Just forgive me. I absolutely can't stand the idea of someone like you becoming my sister-in-law. If you can't understand why, you need to apologize. There's no point in talking any further. Wait, please. Both breaking off the wedding and getting fired are problems. How am I supposed to live if that happens? Why don't you just look for another company? I'm done with you. But at least get me a job at your company, Anthony. What? Your way of thinking is messed up. There's no way you'd get hired after all this. Anyway, it's impossible because I'm Anthony's family. It's embarrassing, isn't it? Victoria, realizing she's about to be both broken off and unemployed, was panicking. It's not embarrassing. I just misspoke earlier. If you call it misspeaking, doesn't that mean you actually think that way, Victoria? Do you really have any intention of apologizing? It doesn't seem like it, does it? I've had many people look at me in various ways, but you're the first to hurl such abuse directly at me. It was quite a shock. Now, I understand firsthand that there are people who think like you. Wait, does that mean you'll forgive me? No, I won't forgive you. Who wouldn't be upset after hearing such things? Would you be happy if it were you, Victoria? If it were me, I'd probably respond twice as harshly. That's how it is. It's going to be tough for you from here on. But good luck, because marrying a woman like you who lacks even a shred of compassion is impossible. Marrying someone who spews hurtful words so easily would probably disappoint our parents in heaven too. That's true. Mom was kind, and Dad was very compassionate. I see. I just realized my ideal image of a couple was that of my parents. I was too slow to realize I want to become a couple like that with Henry, you know? We can become like them together, Melanie. Ah, Henry, would you mind letting go of Melanie's hand for a moment? It seems that your mind settled down completely, brother. And one more thing, remember that we're billing you, Victoria, for all the wedding expenses, okay? Ouch, that's going to hurt the wallet. Well, dear best Victoria, but I can't have the wedding called off. I've already told all my friends, and I've posted about the dress, the food, the venue visits on social media. Then maybe you should delete those posts. Surely the majority who sees them are strangers, right? Is it really fun to boast to people who don't even know who you are? See you around. Wait, this is seriously impossible. Think it over, please. All right. I feel like I hear something, but let's not mind it and move on. Wait, where are you going, brother? We're off to host an engagement announcement party for Henry and Melanie. Well then, my princess, shall we go? Wait, what? Brother Henry. Hey, this is suddenly so embarrassing. Thanks to my brother's thoughtful arrangement, The wedding was transformed into an engagement announcement party for Henry and me. Many work colleagues were invited, and there were lots of mutual acquaintances. As soon as Henry and I greeted everyone, my brother burst into tears. Some people laughed at the sight, while others, perhaps empathizing, shed tears too. Thanks to my brother's good nature, Henry and I could announce our engagement in a warm atmosphere. Meanwhile, Victoria was expelled from the venue. As my brother said, Victoria ended up paying the entire cost of the ceremony, and she had to take on debt to make the payment. Victoria had hoped to flaunt the titles of CEO's wife and working celebrity for a while after the marriage. However, reality was harsh. She was dismissed from her job, and instead of being a CEO's wife, she's spending her days chased by debts. Moreover, unluckily, since she planned to live with my brother, her apartment was already terminated. Some people in the same industry claimed to have seen her in the park, but whether it was really Victoria remained unknown. And as for me, Melanie is finally getting married. Don't worry, the two of us will live happily together. That's right, brother. Henry is trustworthy. I know it's safe, but still, what's this feeling? Hey, Anthony, if it's not too presumptuous of me to suggest, could the three of us visit the grave on our next day off? I'd like to greet your parents too. Henry, you're such a good guy. Hey, brother, you're going to make me cry again. Haha. Thanks to Henry's suggestion, our next day off will be spent visiting her parents' grave. Though my brother broke off his wedding, he seemed to be his usual self, which was reassuring. I hope someday a wonderful person appears for my brother too, and that he becomes the happiest man in the world. Thinking such thoughts, I felt my brother share the same feelings. Looking up at the sky, there was a clear blue expanse without a single cloud. Watching the profile of my brother gazing at the sky, I silently conveyed in my heart, "Thank you for raising me with so much care." I gazed intently at the video playing on my smartphone. It displayed scenes from my home, particularly our bedroom, my husband's and mine. An app on my phone streamed footage from our security cameras, revealing my husband with another woman. Their intimate proximity suggested more than friendship or mere acquaintance. Then, I heard voices through the footage. "You sure she doesn't suspect anything?" One voice queried. "Yeah, I've been following your instructions exactly. It's foolproof. She's clueless, totally believes me," the other responded confidently. They laughed together, then playfully tumbled onto the bed. I was speechless because that woman was none other than my own sister. I am Nancy Hadley, 50 years old, my husband David, who turns 55 this year, and I have been married for 2 decades. We don't have children, and for years it was just us two. However, our lives changed dramatically about a decade ago when David was diagnosed with early-onset dementia. Over time, his condition worsened, impacting his work and everyday life significantly. 10 years after his diagnosis, David had to retire due to his declining abilities. We sought help from my sister, who operates a care facility. She arranged for David's tests, which confirmed his diagnosis. Now, we have a caregiver from my sister's facility visit twice a week to assist us. On the day our regular caregiver, Ms. Johnson, arrived, she asked, "Nancy, how's David doing?" She had brought someone with her, my sister. "He's your husband, after all. I worry too," my sister remarked. Despite her busy schedule, she frequently checked in on us, caring for David like a brother, as she always wanted one. Thanks to my sister and Ms. Johnson's support, I can go to work every day with peace of mind, knowing David is in good hands. While I went out to work, my gratitude towards my sister and Ms. Johnson was immense. Without my income, our household finances would crumble. However, they couldn't assist on weekends, leaving me solely responsible for caregiving. Balancing work during the week with David's care on weekends left me with little time for myself. I didn't fully realize my fatigue until a nurse, who knew me well from David's regular checkups, noticed. We had known each other for nearly a decade, and she could sense even the smallest signs of exhaustion. "Mrs. Hadley, caregiving for your husband is undoubtedly challenging, but you need time to rest on your own, she advised gently. You're right. I understand. I could ask Anne and Miss Johnson for help in emergencies, but I hate to burden them further, I replied. During one of David's checkups, the nurse mentioned a new addition to their staff, a nurse from a specialized dementia hospital in New York. Maybe she can offer some assistance, she suggested, pointing in the nurse's direction. I turned and couldn't believe my eyes. It was Amy, my best friend from college. We embraced, celebrating our unexpected reunion. Amy explained that she had returned to our hometown after her children grew up and she divorced her husband. Let me know when you're free for coffee, she suggested warmly. When David emerged from his examination, Amy greeted him with a smile. This is my husband, David, I introduced. We haven't seen each other since your wedding, Amy said, bending down to David's eye level. I'm looking forward to helping care for you. David smiled in response, and Amy looked at him with a meaningful expression, which caught my attention. Sensing my confusion, Amy stood up with a smile. I've cared for many patients like your husband, she explained kindly. After waving goodbye to Amy, we had several chance encounters, like when picking up David's medication or during his health setbacks. Each time, Amy's concerned glances didn't escape me, but I played it off. A few months post our reunion, while at the hospital with David for an appointment, Amy approached me solemnly. Nancy, can we talk for a moment? She asked. As David went in for his examination, we found ourselves in a counseling room. How's it going? Taking care of David? Are you okay? Amy inquired, her tone serious. I'd opened up about David's health and the toll it was taking on me. Amy listened intently, appearing genuinely concerned. Then, unexpectedly, she began with, Actually, Nancy. What followed was shocking. Amy recounted a recent encounter about a week before we reunited. While shopping in town, she spotted Anne, my sister, and a man she recognized. When Amy approached, Anne introduced the man as her boyfriend. It wasn't until we met again at the hospital that Amy realized the man was David, my husband. I was stunned. No wonder you looked so taken aback that day, Amy remarked. She had seen Anne and David together in town. A week before we reunited, David seemed completely oblivious to Amy's presence. I looked different back then, longer hair, glasses. I probably appeared unrecognizable to him. But something else troubled me deeply. According to Amy, David's behavior at the hospital seemed unnaturally composed for someone with dementia. She mentioned it mirrored the actions of someone she knew from her former workplace, a person feigning dementia. The man I saw in town was walking confidently, responding clearly, appearing perfectly healthy. Could Amy have mistaken him? I suggested. I don't think so. You know David has those distinctive moles under his right eye, right? Amy replied. The man I saw had them too. It's quite a unique feature. I'm sorry for speaking about your husband that way, she added, sensing her remark might have been inappropriate. Amy's observation lingered. Could David have been pretending to have dementia for a decade and be having an affair with Anne? The thought was absurd, but Amy was trustworthy. Honestly, I don't think this hospital is very good, Amy confessed. The doctors here aren't great, and there are rumors. Doesn't it seem odd they have so many patients? Struck by her words, I decided to take action. I bought a home security camera and discreetly placed it in our living room and bedroom to monitor while I was at work. Viewing the footage on my smartphone during breaks revealed a stark contrast. David's behavior was markedly different from what he showed me. He was neither lost nor confused about his surroundings. He was living a seemingly normal life. Furthermore, when Ms. Johnson, the caregiver I had entrusted to look after David, arrived, there was no indication of her providing care. Furthermore, I discovered that Anne had been visiting my house frequently while I was away. Their conversations were captured clearly on the footage. You're not getting caught pretending to have dementia, right, David? Yeah, because I'm doing just as Anne suggests. Pretending not to know the date or where things are is working perfectly. Pretending not to write or go outside. thinking it's day when it's actually night would be good too. Nancy is a trusting person, so I don't think she'll suspect anything. Is Miss Johnson okay? Won't she spill the beans? She's fine. She's a single mom with a kid, so she needs money. I've been giving her a little higher salary, and she's been keeping quiet. After laughing together, they would flirt and head to the bedroom. I was left speechless when I saw the footage. I couldn't believe my sister and husband were conspiring behind my back, but the evidence was undeniable. A few days later, feeling compelled to confront Miss Johnson, who had been caring for David, I arranged to meet her the following Saturday. I visited her apartment and showed her the footage. She looked resigned and apologized with tears in her eyes, admitting, "What's in this footage is the truth. I've been deceiving you all this time, and I'm truly sorry. I don't have a license, and I was struggling to find another job. I had no choice but to go along with what Anne said because she hired me with such attractive terms." Despite her remorse, Miss Johnson provided me with copies of receipts, daily reports, and her diary from that time. No matter how much I needed money, what I did was unacceptable as a human being. "I am really, really sorry," she reiterated. Armed with this evidence and testimony, I decided to gather more proof. After visiting related parties and hearing their accounts, I consulted with my lawyer and planned to confront David and Anne at the scene of their affair. On a typical weekday, pretending to go to work as usual, I waited near my house. When Anne arrived, and it seemed like the right moment, I returned home, catching them in the act. They panicked, unable to escape. "I know everything now, David," I said coldly. David began to confess hurriedly, blaming Anne for seducing him into the deceitful plan. Anne went hysterical, raging against David for trying to duck responsibility. "Shut up! You're the one who kept pushing me into this," David retorted. Unable to tolerate their bickering, I intervened. "That's enough. Both of you get out." I threw them, along with their clothes and Anne's purse, out of the living room window and shut it. They banged on the window, pleading and explaining, but I ignored them. When they persisted, I messaged them on WhatsApp, warning them to leave quietly or face the police. For a few days, they remained silent. Afterward, they continued to come to the house and send messages on WhatsApp, which became irritating. So I made the decision to sell the house and move to a weekly rental apartment. In fact, when David was diagnosed with dementia, I had preemptively changed the title of our jointly owned house to my name. David, who had retired and could no longer manage the mortgage, made this change necessary. I anticipated potential difficulties if a dementia patient retained decision-making authority in an emergency. Fortunately, I was able to sell the house for more than expected and purchased an apartment with the quietly saved funds. Unexpected as the situation was, I must say, good job to past Nancy. Following the divorce, I also claimed division of assets against David. Regardless of David's ability to pay, this statement declared, "You did this to me. I'll never forgive or forget it." Subsequently, I heard through the grapevine that after divorcing me, David remarried and now resides in her house. However, it appears that their relationship is not thriving. I assume David and Anne were swept up in the excitement of their affair. Once married, they could no longer sustain the carefree lover lifestyle. Living together for better or worse, they must face the reality of their situation. Though I'm indifferent, they seem to have received their due. Thanks to Ms. Johnson's revelation, Anne's facility lost its license and closed. The facility struggled to repay its debts, having borrowed extensively from the bank during its opening. This seems like a fitting consequence for a sister who stole her sister's husband. The dubious doctor who issued the false diagnosis faced trouble as well. His staff, including Amy, quit one after another, leading to the closure of his clinic. Apparently, he had been issuing false medical reports for unsavory sources in return for patient referrals. This revelation shocked me, highlighting the extent of some doctors' misconduct. Reflecting on these events, I realized my fault lay in being too trusting. I accepted my sister's word and the doctor's claims at face value. Amy pointed out that I'm too kind and trusting. While I don't like to doubt people, I've learned the importance of scrutinizing information and thinking for myself. On a brighter note, Amy has found a new job at a large general hospital in a neighboring town. Her work experience at a New York hospital earned her the trust of colleagues, and she's enjoying her new role. Following Amy's recommendation, Ms. Johnson also found work at the hospital cafeteria, which Amy finds adorable. Speaking of adorable, Amy's eyes sparkle at the sight of a puppy playing with a ball. This male miniature dachshund joined my home about a month ago and has become my cherished companion, soothing me after long workdays. Amy visits more often under the guise of seeing the puppy, but I know she's concerned about me. While I've lost my husband, I cherish the enjoyable time with my best friend. Embracing a single life and the company of a fellow woman doesn't sound too bad after all. Did the old lady die yet? I glared at the guy, feeling angry. He was my ex-husband who left his blind mother to run away with his mistress. It was hard to believe he was raised by my kind mother-in-law. His words made me even angrier. You must have had it tough, huh? Now you're free to do whatever you want, though there's only so much an old lady like you can do? He laughed rudely. I hid my anger behind a smile and replied, yeah, I just inherited $3 million, so I'm going to enjoy my freedom from now on. His smirk disappeared as he realized I wasn't the person he thought I was. My name is Grace. I'm 63 now. I married young and moved in with my in-laws. Despite their kindness, my husband disappointed me. I divorced him 10 years ago when I was 53. Our kids were teenagers then, and it was tough supporting them and my blind mother-in-law. My ex-husband John and I met at work when I was 18. He was older and seemed reliable. We got married despite my parents' objections. I quit my job to take care of his parents and manage the household while he worked late. One day, I bumped into a former colleague of my husband's at the grocery store. Naturally, we started chatting about my husband and me. The colleague said, "Your husband, Mr. Young, always leaves work early because he's worried about you, Grace. He's such a wonderful husband." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband always came home late, never early. There must have been some mistake, but in the moment, all I could do was give a nervous smile and agree, yes, that's true. When I got home, I brought it up with my husband. I had intended to subtly mention it, saying something like, "You've been coming home late recently. Can't you come home a little earlier? I feel bad for your father. It seems a little embarrassing for him to be cared for by a woman. Can't you at least help him bathe?" But before I could finish, my husband snapped at me. "What? I'm working, you know. I'm not just goofing off. Tell my dad not to be so demanding." But his father wasn't asking for anything. It was just how I felt. My husband seemed unwilling to help with caregiving, and his defensiveness bothered me. I had a sinking feeling that I was right about him, but I was too scared to confront him. I had married against my parents' wishes, so I didn't have a home to return to. Plus, I worried about my in-laws' well-being. In the end, I chose to carry on as usual. Then one day, I thought about getting an electric wheelchair for my father-in-law. Currently, he managed with a cane and a manual wheelchair, but an electric one would allow him to take short strolls. If I put my blind mother-in-law in the wheelchair and pushed her, we could go on longer walks. I talked to my husband about it, expecting him to agree, but his response was lukewarm. "Huh, do we really need it?" he grimaced. "I'm barely making ends meet with my income. Do we really need to spend money on that?" We weren't wealthy, but if the wheelchair could bring even a little joy to my in-laws, I didn't see it as a waste of money. So, I suggested to John that maybe we could take out a loan to buy the electric wheelchair for my father-in-law. He seemed somewhat agreeable, warning me not to cause any trouble. I couldn't tell my in-laws exactly what he said, but I gave them a positive message, indicating we could borrow from the bank. My father-in-law was thrilled, and we went to the bank together to set up the loan and purchase the wheelchair. They were overjoyed with it. However, not long after, my father-in-law passed away. My mother-in-law and I were devastated, but John complained, saying he left us with debt He seemed to have forgotten the happiness the wheelchair brought them. Now it was just my mother-in-law and me living together. She could manage some things herself despite being blind, so my caregiving duties lessened. John suggested we have children, and despite my doubts about him, we eventually had two. But even after the kids were born, he didn't change much. My days were consumed with chores and childcare, but my mother-in-law's happiness kept me going. Despite all this, John continued to come home late, even on his supposed days off. His lack of affection towards my mother-in-law and the children became more apparent. One Saturday, he planned to work instead of taking my mother-in-law to her medical checkup, which we had arranged beforehand. He argued that it was my job as a housewife to take care of her. His words hurt me deeply. I realized then that he only married me because he thought I would take care of his parents. I was filled with regret for marrying him. When I confronted him, he left and never returned. A few days later, he sent a letter divorcing me and stating he wanted nothing to do with the debt or us. Exhausted and hurt, I decided to inform my children and mother-in-law about the situation before moving forward with the divorce. My mother-in-law was the most shocked when she heard about the divorce. She kept repeating how sorry she was while crying. "You've made me happy, Grace, along with my grandkids Mary and Jack. But if you're getting divorced, then I'm like a stranger. I'll live on my own. It'll take time, but I will move out," she said. I replied firmly, holding her hand, "You're no different from my real mother, and you're the only grandmother for my children. We don't need to worry about our future. We're still a family even after the divorce. Let's live together as we have been." My mother-in-law thanked me through her tears. However, I couldn't help but worry. Without my husband, even for all his flaws, the financial situation became dire. I searched desperately for a job, but no one would hire me after being a housewife for so long. Mary and Jack offered to work, but my mother-in-law intervened, suggesting I focus on continuing education without worrying about work. We were puzzled by her suggestion, but life continued as usual, even feeling more comfortable than before. I filed for divorce through my lawyer, with no desire to see my ex-husband again. My mother-in-law wanted to report him missing, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Eventually, she passed away, joining my father-in-law. My ex-husband, her son, never appeared again despite her efforts to find him. Now, unexpectedly, my ex-husband stands before me while I'm out shopping. He tries to engage in conversation, accompanied by a much younger woman. His disrespectful remarks about my deceased mother-in-law infuriate me. But I hold back my anger. Instead, I calmly inform him of my inheritance and the smooth process it was without him around. His reaction is shock and disbelief. As I turn to leave, he desperately calls out to me, but I walk away, leaving him behind, pale and stunned. I couldn't resist feeling a sense of satisfaction. I had no intention of telling him anything, but perhaps he should know how foolish he's been. "You're kidding me, I'm her son, right? I didn't hear about any inheritance. I should have a right to a share too," he protested. His words only made me smirk. "Well, yes, but you were gone. Did you know that after 7 years of disappearance, you are considered legally dead? So your mother-in-law's inheritance was willed to me, your eldest son and eldest daughter. You have no role in this anymore," I explained. My ex-husband looked dumbfounded, and I almost burst out laughing. I understood why my mother-in-law had told me to file a missing persons report after she had passed. A lawyer appeared, explaining everything to me. My mother-in-law's family owned land, and despite severing ties, she had the right to inherit. She had never disclosed it, and we were able to live without any worries thanks to her inheritance. Once I had asked her how she managed her money, and she replied, "I'm using it as I please to live a happy life with my family." Though it wasn't a pension, she spent it freely, and we gratefully accepted her offer. The inheritance she received was substantial, far more than she could ever use in her lifetime. However, the existence of my husband posed a problem. If things remained the same, he would inherit everything. But during her consultation with a lawyer, my husband disappeared. She believed he had finally cut ties with us. She was sad to part from us, but planned to move into a nursing home with assisted living, using up almost all of her inheritance to avoid leaving any troubles behind. My eldest son, eldest daughter, and I all reassured her that we saw her as a family member and wanted to continue living as we had been. It was a joyous moment for my mother-in-law. Wanting to pass on her inheritance to us, she followed her attorney's advice and filed a missing person report for my husband. Following the law, after 7 years, he was legally treated as if he had passed away. When my mother-in-law passed away 1 year later, her inheritance was passed on through lineage to her oldest son and daughter, in place of my husband. Though I had no rights to inheritance, she left a will including me as well, ensuring we received her loving legacy. Upon hearing my words, my ex-husband was left in shock, mouth agape. It served him right. He then contacted me, claiming he should have a share in the inheritance. I couldn't believe how audacious he was. There's no inheritance for someone who's legally dead. I've told him many times, but he's not convinced and insists on discussing it further. I consulted an attorney. For my ex-husband to inherit anything, there would have to be various procedures, such as retracting the missing person report. I had no intention of giving him a single penny. If he wanted to inherit, he would also have to pay inheritance tax. When I told him this, he fell silent. Our children were present during our discussion. He claimed he couldn't take off work or handle the procedures, insisting we should pay his share. I was disgusted by his defiance. Apparently, he's now working a day-to-day job and struggling financially. He had left his previous job due to chronic absences and owed a debt to a previous lover. Even when he explained this, I couldn't understand him. Then, I asked about the woman he was with the other day. He arrogantly replied that she's the one he's been looking for. But they're not married, only together for half a year. My eldest son couldn't help but laugh, while my oldest daughter and I were speechless. When I asked about the woman he left with after our divorce, he said she couldn't make him happy and left nonchalantly. It seems like my ex-husband hasn't quite realized that he's been the one getting dumped all this time. He's been flitting from one woman to another, trying to cling to his youth. "You're an old man. Stop acting like you're still young," I advised him, but it fell on deaf ears. He insisted that his current girlfriend was his destined woman, and I knew there was no use arguing with him. Thanks to our encounter, I found out where he lives now. Apparently, he's in an apartment in the next town over, under his girlfriend's name. My oldest son, using the money my mother-in-law gave us, bought the whole building and became the landlord. He didn't do it to help his father. Instead, he's strict about rent collection, unlike the previous landlord. It's like his way of saying, "You've caused enough trouble. Now it's time to face the consequences." My ex-husband eventually came begging for forgiveness, admitting he failed as a parent and a spouse. But I couldn't just forgive and forget. He asked if Jack could cut him some slack on the rent, but I reminded him that if he had been a better father, he wouldn't be in this situation. My words left him speechless, and he left without a word. In the end, he got kicked out of his apartment due to rent arrears and ended up in a rundown place with drafty rooms. It seems he's still struggling day by day, taking whatever odd jobs he can find. He even broke up with the woman he was with, probably because he couldn't support her anymore. Our family, on the other hand, is thriving, thanks to my mother-in-law's legacy. We've invested wisely in real estate and stocks, ensuring a steady income. We have time for leisure activities like traveling, and my eldest daughter is getting married to a kind and caring man. Despite the hardships we faced, we've overcome them and found happiness in the present. What's the big deal with Costco's membership fee anyway? It's going to save us money. That was Sally, always trying to drag me along on her shopping adventures. She only thought about what was convenient for herself, and I had repeatedly turned down her requests. But she kept insisting it was no big deal, refusing to take no for an answer. Finally, she was ready to set a date, even though I hadn't agreed to go. "So, when are we doing this?" My husband chimed in, completely siding with Sally. I was shocked at his response. What are you thinking? It's Sally we're talking about. She's definitely going to make us pay again. Well, I plan on giving her a taste of her own medicine this time, James said, hinting at some kind of revenge plan if Sally behaved as selfishly as usual. I decided to go along with my husband's scheme. My name is Lily. My child started kindergarten this year, and I've been busy with his education and socializing with other parents in the neighborhood. Fortunately, most of the other moms are very kind, helping me with various things like advice about my child and parent-to-parent consultations. I also try to help out as much as I can, and I think I've managed to maintain good relationships with them, except for one mother, Sally. She always seems to need help from everyone around her, and despite referring to herself as a spoiled princess, hardly ever helps anyone in return. For instance, when the moms make plans to go out for a meal, she'd often appear out of nowhere and join in. I wouldn't mind, except she frequently asked for bites of other people's food and subtly suggested that someone else pay for her meal, claiming she didn't have much money. Other mothers who had experienced similar things felt the same way I did. Whenever I went shopping, I always drove my car, and most of the time, Sally would show up and persistently ask for a ride. I wouldn't mind if we were going to the same place, but Sally was undeniably pushy. I was in such a hurry to catch a ride with you that I forgot my wallet. What are we going to do? Go back for it? Nah, I don't want to inconvenience you. Maybe I can just pay you back later. Every time I took her shopping, it would end up like this. Excuses about forgetting her wallet or leaving her credit card at home, always trying to avoid taking out her own wallet. Sally never seemed to have any intention of paying, and despite promising to pay me back later, she almost never did. Even after I pressured her multiple times with the receipts, she kept evading, saying she didn't have any money now or to wait until her payday. When it comes to money, you're really strict, aren't you, Lily? She once said. I even involved her husband once, who was a decent man and would apologize and pay me back. Sally herself showed no remorse and seemed indifferent to the impact of her actions. While some might dismiss these small expenses, they added up significantly over the month. The stress of chasing her for repayment after each shopping trip was wearing me down. If only I could have refused her shopping requests from the start. But Sally knew how to manipulate me, often using our children as leverage. Our kids were close friends, and Sally would have them make plans to go shopping together before seeking my permission. It was hard for me to say no when she involved our children like that. I couldn't ask my son not to be friends with hers. Other mothers sympathized with my situation, but kept their distance from Sally. Hey, can you do the shopping instead? Why? That mom friend I mentioned before is so persistent. Well, you should just firmly decline, shouldn't you? Finally, I confided in my husband about it, hoping for support. But he didn't fully grasp Sally's character. He said kids are kids, and parents should stand firm. I was at a loss. Then one day, my husband came home looking exhausted. He explained that Sally had cornered him while he was waiting at a traffic light. Oh, you're Lily's husband. Perfect timing. Could you give me a ride to the station? She didn't seem to consider the possibility of him declining. When he refused, she became confrontational, repeatedly trying to open his passenger door. When he held firm, she shouted his name in the middle of the road, demanding his attention. I can't believe she caused such a scene, I said. I've been telling you, Sally is a handful. There's a limit. Afterward, she even asked him for the fare. Despite trying to shake her off, he found himself struggling in traffic. Dropping her off, he realized she was heading to the station without enough money for a ticket. My husband was drained and finally understood why I have been complaining. What is she thinking, really? He said. That's why I wanted you to deal with her instead of me, I replied. I bet she's just as insistent with you. He gave a helpless shrug, and we both felt troubled about what to do next. One day, Sally approached me with an idea. Hey, Lily, I've been wanting to go to Costco. Want to go together? It's cheap and the value is great. Wait, Sally, don't you go there often? I replied cautiously, knowing she wasn't a member. With her sudden proposal, I gave a vague response. Despite not being a member herself, Sally seemed surprisingly knowledgeable about Costco and offered various recommendations. Our family had a Costco membership through my husband, and we occasionally used it to stock up. But that didn't mean I wanted to take Sally along on a shopping trip. I had my suspicions that she was after more than just a good deal. Hey, let's go. You're a member, right, Lily? I'm not a member. Oh, then your husband. That's fine too. And I want you to bring the car too. How do you know that? I got a ride in your husband's car the other day. I saw Costco shopping bags, Sally explained, causing me to involuntarily frown. You know you can't pay at Costco if you're not a member, right? So please take care of the cashier. I'll pay you back later, she continued. You hardly ever pay me back when you say that, don't you? It's okay this time, right? Despite having no intention of agreeing, Sally, as usual, turned to my child. Can we go shopping together? Sure, my son replied enthusiastically. So then the kids can be watched by my husband, right? I haven't said we're going yet. Oh, come on, but it's fine, right? Costco has a membership fee, and it would really help me out. Unable to bear Sally's self-centeredness, I repeatedly refused her, even when I asked her not to use my child to make promises. She remained stubbornly indifferent, making any discussion impossible. Eventually, without even accepting her proposal, she began making plans as if we were definitely going. What are you talking about? I exclaimed when my husband arrived to pick me up. Lily's husband. We were just making a promise to go to Costco together, Sally explained eagerly. Oh, that's fine. When shall we do it? My husband responded, surprising me. Sally happily rushed to my husband and quickly secured a promise to go to Costco the following weekend. After Sally left, I couldn't help but complain to my husband. Hey, what are you thinking? That's Sally we're talking about. I know, but she said she'd bring her own money, didn't she? That's definitely a lie. We're bound to get stuck with the bill. At that time, I planned to give her a taste of her own medicine. James replied confidently, revealing his strategy to handle Sally's actions. Despite my concerns, I couldn't help but laugh when I heard his plan. While it seemed like an outrageous payback, it only applied if Sally behaved as brazenly as usual. Additionally, if this occasion led Sally to avoid getting involved with us, it might turn out to be a good thing. So, I decided to go along with my husband's plan. Finally, the day to go to Costco arrived. Sally, in a good mood from the morning, naturally got into our car, asking if she had forgotten anything. Do you have your wallet? It'd be a problem if you forgot it. Aren't you the one who often forgets? No worries, Sally replied casually, irritating me. James amiably responded to her, which was unusual for him. Normally, I would have wanted to check by having her take out her wallet, but considering my husband's plan, I held back. Sally seemed well aware of Costco's membership system, probably knowing in advance that only those with a membership card could make payments. If she shopped there, inevitably James would have to pay. Then she could push the payment onto us as usual. If she claimed she forgot her wallet, she wouldn't have to pay anything, which was probably what she was thinking. Sally, in high spirits, arrived at the store and swiftly started filling the cart with goods. Wow, such a wide selection. It's hard to choose, she exclaimed happily, tossing items into her cart as she looked around the store. When I suggested we keep our carts separate to avoid confusion with our goods, she adjusted her cart and continued loading it without any hesitation. James surreptitiously whispered in my ear, knowing how Sally was mindlessly adding items to her cart without even looking at the price tags. I couldn't help but laugh. It seemed Sally, as usual, wasn't considering that she'd be the one paying, and I decided to go along with James' plan. As we queued up at the farthest checkout line, observing the crowded checkout area, Sally opened her bag. I watched her closely, and as I had predicted, she started rummaging through her small bag and began to look puzzled. Oh, I'm sorry. It seems I've forgotten my wallet. You said it was okay in the car, didn't you? I'm sorry. Okay, can I pay you back some other time? Sally said, realizing her predicament. Sally's cart had significantly more items than ours. It seemed like she intended to purchase $200 to $300 worth of goods, but she had shown no signs of concern about the amount of money in her wallet. Considering she didn't say anything when we got home today, she probably has absolutely no intention of contributing any money. James and I exchanged glances. Oh, right. Sorry. I need to take this call from my folks, I said abruptly, leaving my cart with James and stepping out of the line. I hid behind nearby shelves, secretly observing their interactions. Sally seemed to be chatting with James without a care in the world. It's a shame you bought so much but forgot your wallet. It's really a bummer, but I'm lucky to have a friend who can cover for me, Sally remarked nonchalantly. James responded. Oh, I forgot to buy something. Can you hold my place in line while I go get it? Ew, fine, but hurry back, okay? James agreed reluctantly, also leaving the line. It was a busy Sunday morning, one of the busiest times at Costco. As soon as Sally turned to face the cashier, she was lost in the crowd. Now, what would she do with a cart that full? She couldn't really claim she's not buying anything, could she? James and I exchanged glances and shared a wry smile hidden behind the store shelves. We walked around the back of the shelves and queued up at the furthest checkout line on the opposite side. From there, we watched Sally, who seemed to be waiting for us while slowly giving up her place in line to those behind her. Given the crowded Sunday morning with many people planning to grab lunch here as well, she wouldn't be able to spot us in line far away. We paid for our goods and left the store first. We got into the car and waited for a while. When I checked my phone to reveal the prank, there was a message from Sally. Hey, still not back? Come on, don't keep me waiting like this. I can't believe she could stand in line that long without her wallet. Why don't we just tell her the truth and ask her to come back to the car? Sounds good to me. Apparently, she was still waiting diligently, which made us both chuckle. I wondered what she was planning to do after putting all that stuff into the cart and then realizing that we didn't have enough money to pay for it all. With that thought, we told her we already finished paying and went back to the car. As expected, an outraged call came in from Sally. Hey, wait a minute. What are you thinking? I'm not done shopping yet. If you don't have your wallet, you can't shop in the first place. Come on back now. Don't make it impossible for me. Stop joking around. Come back quickly and pay for this. We're not paying. Do you have any idea how much money you've made us spend until now? I responded firmly. This argument continued for a while, and no matter what we said, Sally insisted that since I brought her, I should pay. In the end, she even threatened not to go back home unless I paid, which made my husband James even more fed up. Well, if she doesn't want to come back, there's nothing we can do, James said, starting the car. When I asked how Sally would get home, James simply replied, "She'll be fine. I bet she'll just force someone to give her a ride if it comes down to it." With a laugh, clearly still holding a grudge about the incident when Sally forced him to drive her to the station. I kept communicating with Sally, even telling her that we would leave her behind if she didn't come back, but she wouldn't listen. Maybe it was harsh to leave her behind, but with the way things were going, I didn't know what else to do. Knowing her, she'd figure something out, I thought as we left the store. The next day, Sally managed to get home by herself, taking the bus. My husband laughed about how she did have a wallet after all, which was met with a furious Sally storming into our house. "You left me stranded at the store. That was so mean." "Well, it's your fault for going shopping without bringing any money," I retorted. "So, you just left me. That's the worst. You could have just paid for me. Do you even realize how much you've been mooching off us? You're always like this, Lily. You're always so stingy." She brought up her self-centered arguments, yelling endlessly about how she was unhappy that I didn't spend my money. She even demanded compensation for her emotional distress, making a scene at the entrance of our house. "What's going on here with all the shouting?" Catherine, passing by, interrupted. "Oh, Catherine, listen to this. Sally said with a smirk upon seeing her. Lily promised to take me shopping, and then she left me. Oh, you mean you pressured her into making a promise, right? Catherine responded skeptically. No, it's not like that. Lily said she'd take me. There's no way she'd invite someone who's always forgetting her wallet and relying on others to pay for her. So you threw a tantrum trying to get her to pay for you again, and then she left you. That's what you get. Catherine pointed out the truth of the matter, contrary to the story Sally was trying to spread. Sally was left speechless. I had anticipated that Sally might spread some rumors, so I had already discussed yesterday's events with Catherine under the pretense of consultation. On the flip side, Sally, who was lectured by Catherine, left with a bright red face. Catherine, while encouraging me and acknowledging it was a tough situation, seemed a little amused. I'm sure she'll be telling others about what Sally has done from here on out. After that, Sally couldn't even correct the truth, and thanks to Catherine, her misdeeds quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. Sally tried to make some allies, but she seemed to be spreading unnecessary rumors herself, and it seemed like no one would help her. On the contrary, many people told her she got what she deserved and started to distance themselves from her even more. All of this is your fault. Sally kept blaming me as usual. After a while, it seems she was severely scolded by her husband, and now she starts to run away as soon as she sees me. Since the people who were fed up with Sally's actions started to praise me for doing a good job, I'd like to think this issue is settled. Because of Sally's constant annoyance, I was distanced from many people. But now this incident has brought us closer. We started going shopping together. But of course, we each pay for our own things and have built a balanced relationship of give and take. Hello, is this Catherine? Can you come over for a bit? It was a call from Michelle, my husband's younger sister. She sounded panicked, really on edge. Michelle's house was just a short walk away. I've got it. I'll head over right now. When I arrived at Michelle's, she led me to a room that was buzzing with bees. What the heck is this? I opened a cardboard box and they came flying out. We need to call Michelle's husband, Bob. He's at the coffee shop, I said, and dialed him up. Talking in a room full of bees seemed like a bad idea, so Michelle and I stepped outside. The three of us gathered on the front porch. So, Michelle, why do you have that box of bees in your house? I don't know. I just picked it up because it was left in front of my house. That can't be. That box was sent to me from my daughter, Emily. My name's Catherine Jones, a 65-year-old who works part-time at a local supermarket. One thing that hasn't changed since I was a kid is my love for stuffed animals and teddy bears. Growing up, we didn't have much money, so I couldn't often get stuffed animals or teddy bears. But now that I'm an adult, every time I travel or go out, I buy a teddy bear. Collecting them has become my joy. My husband, Larry Jones, who works at the town city hall, indulges this childlike hobby of mine. About a year ago, there was a teddy bear I desperately wanted. A limited edition online item, a collaboration between a popular brand and character. However, I had never shopped online and was about to give up on getting it. That's when I talked to Larry about it. Leave the online shopping to me. We've started ordering things online at my workplace. Really? Yes. So, I'll order it for you. Oh, Larry, you're always so reliable. Thank you. With that, Larry promptly took out his laptop and showed me how to order, helping me through the process. Whenever I had troubles, Larry was always there to help. After that, I began to order everything online, from daily necessities and groceries to even teddy bears. Around December of that year, the supermarket I worked at entered its busiest season. Being experienced at the job, I started working almost every day. With that, I had limited time to pick up items I'd ordered online. Larry was even busier. Because of this, I decided to reconsider how I received my deliveries. Recently, I learned about a service that allows packages to be left by the front door even if no one is home. Since then, I've been primarily using this option for my deliveries, Just the other day, while I was on break at work, I received an email notification that my package had been delivered. This was nothing new. I'd received similar emails many times before. However, when I got home later, something seemed off. As I entered my house's gate and approached the door, I glanced around but couldn't find the package in its usual spot. Puzzled, I stepped back outside the gate. Strange, I muttered, hearing the sound of crows in the sunset-colored sky. Larry hadn't returned from work yet, but he should be home soon with dinner to prepare. So I put the delivery issue aside and went inside to start cooking. As I focused on preparing dinner, I completely forgot about the missing package. The next few days were busy with house chores and work, and I didn't find the time to address the undelivered package. Then, one Sunday morning, while watching the news, Larry mentioned, "I'm in the mood for that omelette from the cafe." Larry was referring to a cafe owned by his sister Michelle and her husband Bob, who was the chef there. Since both of us had a rare day off, we decided on a whim to visit that cafe. "Would you like to go to that cafe?" Larry asked. "That sounds good. Let's go." I agreed. Although we call it our favorite spot, we only visit about once a month, usually when one of us expresses a desire to go. This is because Bob's omelettes are exceptional and one of Larry's favorite dishes. The cafe was just around the corner from our house. Under a cloudless blue sky, we walked towards it. Upon opening the cafe door, a metal doorbell jingled. "Welcome." "Hey, here you are. Thanks for coming in. Please take a seat at the counter," Michelle greeted us. We were guided to seats right in front of the kitchen counter. Well, both of you together. How are y'all doing?" Bob asked cheerfully. "As always, we're doing well," Larry replied. Even though there were only 4 people inside, the atmosphere felt bustling. I loved this cheerful vibe. This place is wonderful, I thought. "Bob, can we get 2 of the usual?" Larry asked. "Leave it to me," Bob replied. Bob skillfully cracked and whisked 4 eggs, poured them onto a pan, shaped them, and served them onto 2 plates. Lastly, he added some Italian parsley and passed them to Michelle. "Here you go, 2 servings of omelettes." "This is so delicious," Larry remarked. "I've had it many times and I always crave it." After we finished eating, we were served coffee. "This dish is always so tasty, isn't it?" "Thank you," I said appreciatively. With that, Michelle sat across the counter facing me. That's when I noticed something. Michelle was wearing earrings that looked just like the ones I had ordered online. "Michelle, those earrings are so cute. Where did you get them?" I asked. Michelle smiled and replied, "Oh, really? Thank you. I got them online." "Yeah, online shopping sure is handy," I commented. "Yep, that's right. But when I'm running this cafe all the time, I hardly get back home during the day. I don't even have time to receive packages," Michelle explained. "Well, how about asking to have your packages left by the door?" I suggested to Michelle. Michelle looked a bit surprised and asked, "Is there such a thing?" At that point, I decided to explain the concept of the service in detail, recalling and sharing my own experiences with it at home. It's a good service, but sometimes there are mistakes. There have been a few instances where I haven't received my packages, even though I've paid for them. I really should call the courier company about it. But I just haven't had the time, I explained. Michelle responded empathetically. "Oh, I see. So that happens." I took this moment to check the status of my packages to be delivered. At the top of the list, the limited edition teddy bear I ordered was shown as preparing for shipment. I pointed it out to Michelle and said, "Look, Michelle, it says it hasn't been delivered yet." Then I pointed to the second item, which read delivered. It was a cosmetic product. "This should have already arrived at my place, but it hasn't." "That's strange," I remarked. "I hope you find it," Michelle said. At that moment, I looked over at Larry. He and his friends were having a different conversation, but soon joined in on our topic. "Well, guess we should just wait for it to be delivered someday," Larry said with a carefree smile. Larry's always been such a laid-back guy. He doesn't seem to take things too seriously. We continued our casual chat for a while before leaving the cafe. On the way home, I impulsively checked the delivery history on my smartphone. Nothing had changed. Most of the packages were marked as delivered. I wondered why it hadn't arrived and thought of various possible reasons. Maybe the local post office was holding it, or it got delivered to the wrong house. I was pretty sure no one in my neighborhood would just take a package left outside someone else's door. Right now, I was mostly concerned about whether that limited edition teddy bear would be delivered as promised. Whether or not I pursued the issue would depend on if that teddy bear arrived. That's what I was thinking to myself. 2 days had passed since I went to the coffee shop. Right after work, I eagerly checked my smartphone. At last, the delivery status of the limited edition teddy bear I had been longing for read delivered. I quickly changed out of my work clothes and started to walk home faster. Once home, I looked for the package, but I couldn't find a box anywhere. I still hadn't figured out why the package hadn't arrived at my place, and I was getting pretty frustrated. Up until now, the only items that hadn't been delivered were cosmetics and condiments, so I wasn't in a rush. But this time was different. The teddy bear I had been eagerly waiting for, which was supposed to be part of my collection, hadn't arrived. I decided to get to the bottom of this. That evening, I talked to Larry. I didn't receive the teddy bear that was supposed to arrive today, I told him. That's bad. How many times has this happened now? Larry asked. Probably about 3 times. Something's not right, I replied. Oh, I'm gonna call the post office now. Let's do that, Larry suggested. I called the nearest post office, but as expected, there was no good news. The delivery man answered the call. I can't find the package you said you left at the door, he informed me. Really? I'm sure I left it right in front of your door. I thought maybe you still had it. What's going on? I asked. Well, there's a possibility someone stole it. You might want to file a police report, the delivery man suggested. Thanks. I'll think about it, I replied. Both of our spirits seemed to sink. For some reason, I felt sorry for the delivery man too. Even if I wanted to file a theft report, I didn't have any solid proof and was hesitant. That's when Larry said, "Let's ask Emily. She might know a solution." Emily is our daughter, who turned 40 this year. Now she's married and living in her husband's house, seemingly swamped with chores and work every day. Thinking it might be easier to discuss with my daughter Emily, I decided to ask her for advice. Hello, Emily. I've been having an issue for the past month. Packages I've been expecting haven't been arriving, I explained. Emily chuckled a bit and then came up with a wild suggestion. I'm gonna send over a box of bees. If we leave it out for delivery, maybe we can catch the thief red-handed when they open it. What do you think? To be honest, the idea seemed way too bold, but it might be worth a try. Can you really do that? Don't worry about it. We have a huge swarm of bees back home, and this might just help us catch the culprit quickly, Emily reassured me. I was skeptical but hopeful, so I waited for the bee-filled package. A few days later, after work, I checked my phone and saw that the anticipated delivery had been made. When I got home, just like always, the package was nowhere to be found. I wasn't sure if this was a good or bad sign, but there was nothing I could do about it. Honestly, I was about to give up. At that moment, my smartphone buzzed. It was a call from Michelle. Hello, Catherine. Can you come over for a bit? Michelle's voice sounded urgent, almost panicky. Sure, I'll be right there. When I got to Michelle's house, she led me to her room, and to my surprise, the room was filled with bees flying everywhere. Oh my gosh, what happened? I exclaimed. When I opened this box, this is what I found inside, Michelle explained. First, I was shocked to find bees buzzing all around the room, and even more shocked to find out that Michelle was the culprit. I thought I should call Bob, who should be at the coffee shop, so I dialed his number, thinking it'd be difficult to discuss in a room full of bees. Michelle and I stepped outside. The 3 of us gathered at the front door. I then asked Michelle, "So Michelle, any idea why there's a box of bees in this house?" "I have no clue. I just picked it up and opened the box that was outside," Michelle replied. "That can't be right. That box was sent to me from my daughter, Emily," I pointed out. I told you I don't know, Michelle insisted. Michelle, did you steal it? I asked. No, I didn't. I swear. Michelle raised her voice. If you say you didn't, mind if I take a look inside? Maybe other stolen stuff might pop out, I suggested. No way. Let me check the room quickly, Michelle said, not letting me enter. I had no choice but to wait outside. As I was explaining to Bob about my missing packages possibly being stolen, we heard Michelle scream. She probably got stung by a bee in her panic. Michelle came out looking disheveled and said, "The room's a mess with those bees flying around, so I'd appreciate it if you'd head home for today." She indicated that she wouldn't be letting anyone in her room because of the bees. Then, an unfamiliar person approached us. It was a beekeeper named Oliver, a friend of Emily's who lived nearby. After a quick introduction, Oliver said, "Emily asked me to help with the bee situation. Is it okay if I handle it here?" "Yes, please. We'd appreciate it," I replied. While Michelle was flustered, Bob and I let Oliver inside the house. While waiting for the bees to be collected, we continued talking outside. "I guess we'll be able to check the room today," Bob remarked. "But I've only got stuff I bought." "There's no point in checking," Michelle suddenly asserted, clearly intending to insist that everything in there was hers. 30 minutes later, Oliver completed collecting 900 honeybees. Shocked by the sheer number of bees, the three of us entered the room. I took a quick look around and then started searching every corner. To my surprise, I found daily necessities like fabric softener and cosmetics I had ordered, scattered here and there. "So you've been taking all of these too, huh?" I confronted Michelle. "No, I told you." Michelle began, but I showed her the order history on my phone with those products listed. "You still better deny this," I asked. "Well, there's a chance we just bought the same things, right?" Michelle replied, slightly exasperated. I didn't give up. I continued searching for the teddy bear, and near the edge of the sofa, I found a familiar-looking teddy bear. "Is this teddy bear also one you bought?" I questioned Michelle. "Yes," Michelle replied. I knew this teddy bear was a limited edition, and each had its own serial number. So I checked the number for my teddy bear on my phone and compared it to the number on this one. Both had the same 5-digit number. "This teddy bear is mine." "See, it has the same number." I showed it to Michelle and Bob. "I didn't know modern stuffed animals could do that," Bob muttered, while Michelle just sat on the sofa and looked down silently. "So it was you who was stealing from her house every time?" I asked Michelle. "Yes." Michelle's voice grew heavy. "What did you take? You haven't been using them all this time, have you?" I pressed further. "I used a bit of the toner and some imported seasonings," Michelle confessed. "Why would you do something like that?" More than being angry about having things stolen, I wanted to know her motive. I was out of money. The amount I was spending exceeded what I had, that's all," Michelle explained. "But why spend so much? What did you spend it on?" I probed. "Well, Michelle's words faltered, and she seemed hesitant to talk about it. Suddenly, Bob moved quickly and picked up a piece of paper that had fallen under the couch. "Hey, what's this? Don't tell me you've been..." Bob trailed off, showing us a piece of paper with numbers and an amount. "I'm sorry, I got really into it," Michelle admitted. The paper Bob showed was a horse racing ticket. It turned out that Michelle had gotten heavily into horse racing and used the money she saved by using my stolen items on bets. Then Bob dropped another bombshell. "You didn't by chance take money from our cafe's earnings, did you?" "Just a little bit," Michelle confessed. I knew something was off with the profits. "How could you?" Bob was clearly upset. It turned out she had embezzled tens of thousands of dollars from their cafe. "I'm so sorry. I promise I won't do anything like this again. Please forgive me," Michelle cried loudly, apologizing. But for me, having my cherished teddy bear stolen even once was unforgivable. Her apologies did nothing to move my heart. Bob looked equally irritated. Turns out she had embezzled tens of thousands of dollars from their cafe, I informed Bob. "Shall we meet in court?" Bob suggested. With solid evidence in hand, Bob and I decided to file a police report. Bob decided to get divorced from Michelle. After that, charges of theft concerning my belongings and embezzlement in the course of her duties were brought against Michelle. She was eventually arrested, and we were satisfied with the outcome. Bob's cave hired part-time workers, and sales began to rise steadily. By the way, I was given the opportunity to become the part-time team leader there. Michelle got arrested, I heard Larry mentioned. It's for the best. I'm better off without someone like her, I replied. Surrounded by hard-working folks makes me much happier now, Bob added. Yes, let's keep up the good work, I agreed. From then on, I started receiving packages left at my door. Of course, many new teddy bears joined my collection. Larry and I even went on trips to collect limited edition teddy bears from various places. And every day is blissful surrounded by all these teddy bears with Larry. Mary, what's the deal with me being stuck solo at my sister's wedding? I found myself isolated, and when I inquired about it to her mother-in-law, she smirked before replying. Oh, was that the case? Well, it's all right. A middle school graduate is hardly a feather in the family cap. Mary always had a knack for belittling me, and as others began to take notice, I felt even more out of place, drowning in embarrassment. What do you even know about Eddie? And you don't know my brother, I muttered, feeling utterly defeated. Then my sister Michelle appeared, and the dynamic shifted. My name's Eddie Smith. I turned 42 this year. I began unraveling the story of our upbringing. Ever since our parents passed away in a car accident when we were kids, Michelle and I, just a year apart, were raised by our grandparents. Though we felt vulnerable without our parents, our grandparents filled our lives with love, ensuring we never felt alone. However, as our grandparents grew older, I felt the weight of responsibility. I started working right after middle school, despite Michelle's encouragement to pursue higher education. Are you sure you don't want to go to high school? You don't have to bear this burden alone, she urged, her concern palpable. But I couldn't shake the need to support our family, especially Michelle, whose dream of becoming a doctor fueled my determination. I don't have a dream like you, Michelle. Right now, my dream is to contribute to the family as soon as possible, I explained, knowing she felt guilty about my sacrifice. Yet, she understood once I shared my true feelings. Michelle's hard work paid off, and she secured a spot in college, eventually becoming a doctor. With our grandparents gone by the time she earned her medical license, we leaned on each other for support. Hey, Eddie, I'm free this weekend. How about we grab a bite? Michelle suggested, extending an olive branch of camaraderie. That sounds perfect. I'm free too. Let's go for drinks, I replied, grateful for the bond we shared. Michelle and I had a close relationship, often spending our free time together, even as I juggled various temporary jobs to make ends meet. Lately, there's been someone causing you trouble, Mary, Michelle's mother-in-law. To my surprise and delight, she recently got engaged, making her my relative by marriage. Initially, based on what Michelle had told me about Mary being a gentle and modest woman, I was hopeful. Coming from a family without parents, I looked forward to our relatives coming together. However, my naive optimism was shattered at our first encounter. Eddie, you don't look as impressive as Michelle. It's disappointing that you're nothing like what I imagined being related to you would be, Mary remarked as soon as Michelle left the table. Her demeanor completely changed, and even Michelle's fiancé, Tom, remained silent as Mary continued her tirade. You know, Michelle graduated from medical school and works at the forefront as a doctor. Despite being a woman, she carries herself with such confidence. But I never heard about having such a loser brother. Mary continued, disregarding any attempt from Tom to intervene. When Mary came to announce the engagement, she was all smiles in front of Michelle, but as soon as Michelle left the room, her tone shifted, and she began berating me. I was shocked into silence by her sudden change. She looked down on me with disdain, mocking my middle school education and my job. She made it clear that having someone with my educational background as a relative was a problem for her. Despite her husband being a doctor and her working in medical administration, Mary constantly imposed unreasonable demands on me. She even went as far as suggesting that I cut ties with Michelle to avoid embarrassment for her family. I never expected to be insulted like this, especially since Michelle had expressed excitement about our meeting. Feeling embarrassed and hurt by Mary's words, I couldn't help but wonder how things got so messed up. I felt trapped, knowing that Michelle and I were each other's only blood relatives and that cutting ties wasn't an option. Throughout our conversation, Mary continued to make snide remarks, leaving me feeling even more isolated and disheartened. Since we don't live together or see each other often, I've managed to endure Mary's persistent attempts to convince me to cut ties with Michelle. Maintaining a good relationship with Michelle is paramount to me, as she's the only family I have left. Ideally, I'd like to get along with Mary too, but it seems she can't accept me due to my lower level of education. Why do I have to deal with someone with such a low education like you? Mary's words continue to sting. Being judged solely on my educational background makes my blood boil. Despite this, I didn't object to Michelle and Tom's marriage. Mary's persistence in trying to separate us has only intensified since their wedding date was set. Reluctantly, I prepared for the wedding, knowing I couldn't miss such a significant family event despite my apprehensions. Upon arrival at the venue, I was shocked to find myself seated alone at the back, contrary to what Michelle had assured me. Mary's presence only added to my discomfort, her judgmental gaze making me feel even more out of place. "Eddie, you're looking quite shabby today. Couldn't you even prepare proper attire for a wedding?" Mary's tone was as cutting as ever as she berated me for my appearance. Asking her about my isolated seating only elicited a smirk from her, followed by her disparaging remarks about my education. The humiliation was unbearable, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of her scornful words. Despite my attempts to reason with her, Mary's insults only grew more heated, culminating in her insistence that I leave the wedding altogether. Her disdain for me was palpable, leaving me no choice but to endure her verbal onslaught in silence. Filled with the desire to escape, I made a silent vow to sever ties with Mary once and for all. However, before I could make my exit, Michelle approached me, unaware of the turmoil brewing within me. Before I could utter a word to Michelle, Mary interjected, dismissing me as a failure of a brother and suggesting that I leave. Michelle, however, defended me, citing how I had supported her journey to becoming a doctor. Despite her protests, Mary continued to belittle me, claiming that our family was now part of the upper class, unlike me. As the tension escalated, Peter, Michelle's fiancé, intervened, urging us to stop causing a scene. Mary, desperate to shift the blame onto me, attempted to convince Peter that I was at fault. But before she could succeed, Dr. Williams, the hospital director, approached me with gratitude for a past encounter. Mary couldn't contain her shock as Dr. Williams praised me and offered me a position at the hospital. Recalling how I had assisted him during a crisis on the street, Dr. Williams expressed his admiration for my proactive nature. His offer of employment was a turning point for me, as I had been struggling to find a stable job. Grateful for the opportunity, I accepted Dr. Williams' offer and embarked on a new chapter in my career. Despite facing challenges, I worked diligently and obtained certifications in medical administration and secretarial duties. Dr. Williams continued to support and guide me, ultimately changing my life for the better. He was the one who saved my life. My brother was indeed very grateful for your help. Michelle expressed her appreciation to Dr. Williams. To my surprise, Peter had met me a few times at meetings, being aware of the situation. However, Mary, who had always looked down on me, probably didn't know. Her shock was palpable upon hearing about my relationship with Dr. Williams. What the hell? A middle school graduate like him becoming an executive secretary at the headquarters? Impossible, Mary exclaimed in disbelief. She seemed unable to fathom that someone they had dismissed as a middle school graduate could hold such a prestigious position. In her eyes, my achievements seemed like deception, and she dismissed even my ability to speak German as mere showing off. The headquarters, a gathering place for the group's top talents, was a realm of the elite. Mary struggled to comprehend how someone like me could belong there. Until now, Mary had refrained from openly speaking ill of me in front of Michelle. But today, it seemed she couldn't contain her disdain any longer. Her insults were directed at me, regardless of who was present. Dr. Williams, however, swiftly addressed her remarks. "So, are you saying that I'm lying?" His question left Mary visibly shaken. He made it clear that he didn't judge people based on their educational background. Eddie, indeed, has been demonstrating his capabilities adequately at the hospital, Dr. Williams affirmed, his words warming my heart. I had always been somewhat conscious of my educational background, and Dr. Williams' recognition of my efforts meant a lot to me. However, Mary couldn't accept my achievements and dismissed them as underhanded tactics. She insisted that she could do her job better than me and accused me of deceiving everyone. But Dr. Williams pointed out that her reputation at the hospital wasn't exemplary, citing several resignations among the staff due to her behavior. Under Mary's continued uproar, Dr. Williams coldly retorted, questioning her integrity regarding the misuse of funds at the affiliated hospital. Mary was visibly shaken, showing signs of panic as Dr. Williams confronted her about the financial discrepancies. Peter denied any involvement in the misuse of funds, prompting Dr. Williams to announce a thorough investigation. Mary pleaded desperately, but her son Tom refused to cover for her any longer, expressing his desire to succeed as a doctor independently. Disappointed by Mary's actions, Dr. Williams emphasized the importance of cherishing those around them, declaring that someone who couldn't uphold such values had no place in his hospital. Mary, realizing the gravity of the situation, turned to me for help, but I had reached my limit. "I've never been considered family by you," I asserted, refusing to associate with someone who only found their worth by looking down on others. Michelle, standing behind me, nodded in agreement, signaling her support. The wedding proceeded without Mary, and at Dr. Williams' behest, she was dismissed from the company for embezzlement of funds. During her divorce proceedings, her affair with a male nurse was exposed, leading to her downfall and destitution. Michelle apologized to me and promised to cut ties with Mary, reaffirming our bond as family. Despite the challenges, I continue to work hard every day, valuing family and being grateful to those who support me, including Dr. Williams. Rich Mill didn't like me because I came from a poor background. Once, she played a mean trick by calling me the housemate at her party and then posted it online to embarrass me. Hello, everyone. I'll refer to my husband as Harry and my mother-in-law as Olivia. I'm 28 years old and I've been married to Harry for about 2 years. Harry, also 28, and I were friends in college, and that's how we met. We didn't start dating until after we graduated. A few years ago, we met again at a friend's party and have been together ever since, almost 4 years now, including our time married. Harry and I love each other, and I don't regret marrying him. But the one thing I struggle with is his mother, Olivia. Olivia raised Harry on her own as a single mother, which is impressive. But she can be very arrogant and cold. This makes it hard for me to like her as a person. From the very beginning, she made it clear she didn't approve of me. And I think it's because of my financial background. I come from a poor family. My parents had to work hard to support me and my 3 sisters. We were quite poor growing up. My dad was a janitor, and my mom took on various odd jobs to make ends meet. I'm not ashamed of it. In fact, I'm proud of where I come from, as are my siblings. We never saw our parents' jobs as something to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. They were honest, hardworking people, and we're proud to be like them. Olivia, on the other hand, is judgmental about social class. She made a face when I told her my dad used to be a janitor and my mom did odd jobs for wealthier families. This happened the first time we had dinner with her, and ever since then, she's made it clear I'm not welcome in her family. She's never said anything directly to me, but she keeps her distance physically, as if she can't touch me. Whenever she invites us for dinner, she even uses different silverware and plates for me, ones that aren't as nice as the ones she and her son use. I didn't bring it up at first because I thought I might be overthinking things, and I didn't want to make a big deal out of nothing. But then other things happened that made me realize Olivia was being classist. For instance, she would give me cheap birthday presents and leave the price tags on them. Olivia ran her own business and could afford nice gifts, like an expensive watch for Harry or an all-expenses-paid trip to Bali for her assistant. But for me, she gave a knockoff purse that probably didn't cost more than $85. After that, I knew for sure she didn't like me. The biggest mistake I made was not talking to Harry about it earlier, because I didn't know how to bring up something so upsetting. I have faced discrimination before, but never from someone I hope to have a good relationship with in the future. I actually used to admire Olivia before I saw this side of her. I want to start my own business someday too, so when Harry told me about his mother's business success, I was impressed. My sisters and I study finance in college with student loans and now have decent jobs. I work in marketing and advertising but dream of building something on my own. Before Harry and I got married, I hoped Olivia would accept me eventually. But it didn't happen, and it got too awkward. A few months after we married, I finally told Harry I felt uncomfortable visiting his mother because she made me feel inferior, and I suspected it was because of my family's background and my dad's job as a janitor. Harry was understanding and said he would talk to his mother to clear the air. He did talk to her, but she denied everything and started crying, saying she had been nothing but warm to me and that accusing her of being classist was unfair. This made me feel like she was trying to manipulate us. I told Harry I appreciated his efforts, but I still didn't feel comfortable around her. So we agreed that Harry would stay in touch with his mom, but I would keep my distance until I felt ready to talk to her. He didn't cut her off completely, but he distanced himself, and I knew she resented me for it. Now that we were married, I didn't have much choice but to deal with her, so I tried to make peace with the situation. We'd see each other at family gatherings, but otherwise, we kept our distance, and that worked for both of us for a while. However, a few days ago, she texted me at noon saying she wanted me to come early to her 50th birthday party because she wanted to make things right between us. She admitted she'd treated me badly in the past and wanted to apologize. I was hopeful and agreed to come early. When I arrived, she immediately told me to wait in the kitchen. I was confused but did as she asked. Later, she came into the kitchen and introduced me to the waitstaff as her housemaid, recording the whole thing and laughing like it was a funny joke. Everyone was uncomfortable, and I was incredibly humiliated. I ran out of the house in tears and drove home. I had texted Harry that I was visiting his mom, but he was at work and hadn't read my message. So when I got home, I felt even more alone and cried myself to sleep. A couple of hours later, Harry came home and showed me a video his mom had posted. It was the prank she played on me, cut off right before I started crying. She captioned it as a prank gone wrong, but it was clear she posted it to humiliate me. I was devastated and couldn't stop crying. Harry assured me not to worry and promised to do everything possible to have the video taken down. He was determined to make his mother regret what she did, even though she wasn't responding to his messages or calls due to being busy with the party. He knew she would eventually call to ask why he hadn't arrived yet. When she did call, Harry was ready to confront her. About an hour after I woke up from crying, his mother called him. I can't repeat the words Harry used, but he was very upset with her. He ended the call by threatening to file a lawsuit against her for what she did to me. After Harry finished yelling at her, he apologized to me repeatedly for not taking action against Olivia when I first told him I was uncomfortable around her. I didn't blame Harry because initially, I downplayed the situation, making it seem like it wasn't a big deal. I also never spoke up about other incidents that bothered me, and Harry isn't very observant or attentive, so he didn't pick up on these issues himself. I couldn't blame him for not cutting off his mother because he didn't fully understand how terrible she could be. On the day Olivia's party, I finally opened up to Harry about everything that had been bothering me. He was furious and told me I should have informed him sooner, which I agreed with. He apologized for not noticing how his mother was treating me and falling short in supporting me. We talked it through, and then he contacted his lawyer to see if there was a legal way to hold his mother accountable. Unfortunately, we couldn't pursue a lawsuit for emotional distress because there were no physical repercussions from what she did. Harry was determined to take action, though. He didn't want to just cut his mother out of our lives. He wanted to teach her a lesson. I could see how angry he was on my behalf, and I appreciated his support, so I didn't try to dissuade him. The next morning, Harry told me he had given his mother an ultimatum. She had 3 days to issue a public apology, not just to me but also to my family, and it had to be in video form. If she didn't comply, he threatened to expose her behavior to all her business contacts, which could seriously damage her reputation as a successful female entrepreneur. Harry believed that his mother's actions were not in line with feminist values, especially considering her role as a female business owner. He knew that tarnishing her reputation could significantly impact her future prospects in business. We're now on the second day of the ultimatum Harry gave to his mother. I'm feeling uneasy about the situation because it seems like a form of blackmail. I expressed my concerns to Harry, but he dismissed them, believing this was the only way to make Olivia realize her behavior was unacceptable and prevent future issues. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of my husband going after my mother-in-law in this way. Update 1. Following the advice of many of you, I sat down with Harry after he returned from work and shared my concerns once again. I explained that while Olivia was clearly in the wrong, I didn't want us to stoop to her level just to make her apologize. I told Harry that an apology forced under these circumstances wouldn't mean anything sincere. I expressed that I didn't want him to go through with his plan to pressure Olivia into apologizing. Instead, I suggested that he call off the ultimatum and simply tell Olivia to stay away from us. Surprisingly, Harry didn't resist this time. He broke down in tears. It took several minutes of consoling before he could explain what was upsetting him. As many of you pointed out, Harry was trying to overcompensate for not taking the situation seriously enough initially. He admitted feeling guilty after watching the video of Olivia's behavior, which has since been deleted. He realized he had been focusing on getting back at his mom rather than truly listening to me and respecting my wishes. Harry acknowledged that he made the same mistake again by not taking my concerns seriously enough. He recognized my submissive nature and admitted he hadn't been listening to me as he should. We had a deep conversation about this, and Harry texted Olivia, informing her that an apology wasn't necessary because he no longer wanted any contact with her. I'm proud of both of us for handling the situation well and making sure we face the problem together as a team, rather than turning against each other. Harry and I deeply care for each other, which made it difficult for us to discuss our biggest issues. That's why we've decided to seek marriage counseling. I've already started looking into it, and I hope we can start working on our marriage within the next week. Our goal is to ensure that such upsetting incidents never happen again. Dealing with this situation has been one of the worst experiences of my life, and I never want to feel the way I did a couple of days ago ever again. I'm relieved that Harry has decided to cut ties with Olivia, because I couldn't bear to see her again without feeling an overwhelming urge to confront her about her arrogance. I won't act on it, but I hope someone else does. Update 2. A week has passed since Olivia's party, and she hadn't reached out to us after Harry called off the ultimatum. We sensed something was brewing because Olivia wasn't the type to let things go so easily. However, as days went by without any contact from her, we started to forget about the situation. Then today, Olivia unexpectedly showed up at our house with her lawyer. When I answered the door, she walked past me without acknowledging me and called out for Harry to meet her in the living room. It was frustrating because she acted as if she owned the place, ordering us around in our own home. Harry refused to comply with her demands and told her he didn't want to speak with her right now and asked her to leave with her lawyer. Olivia persisted, insisting that Harry sit down because he needed to hear what she had to say. I urged Harry to just sit down so we could get this over with and get her out of the house. I was prepared to hear her threats or demands if it meant resolving the situation quickly. Reluctantly, Harry took a seat on the couch, and I sat down beside him to assert our authority in our own home, despite Olivia's disregard for me. She then instructed her lawyer to read out a document outlining her terms. Essentially, the document stated that Olivia wanted Harry to leave me, or else she would disinherit him, distributing her assets to other family members, employees, and charities. The document included a list of properties and assets involved. After the lawyer finished reading Olivia's document, which seemed like an attempt to intimidate Harry, he remained unfazed. Harry appeared uninterested, playing with my ring and not paying attention to the list of assets being read out. Once the reading was done, Olivia asked Harry what he planned to do next, emphasizing that if he stayed with me, he'd forfeit his inheritance forever. To everyone's surprise, Harry stood up, walked over to his mother, and gave her a hug, saying goodbye. Olivia's expression shifted from triumphant to shocked, which made me giggle uncontrollably. Finally acknowledging my presence, Olivia snapped at me, hurling insults and calling me names. I chose to ignore her, knowing it would aggravate her further. Harry didn't engage with her either. Instead, he calmly suggested we return to our room to avoid witnessing his mother's escalating meltdown, which was becoming embarrassing. We spoke to each other normally, pretending Olivia wasn't there, and headed back to our room to irritate her further. However, Olivia crossed a line by accusing me of being a gold digger, saying she regretted approving of our marriage and insinuating that I was only interested in Harry's money because my dad was a loser. I didn't argue with her accusations, but defended my father's hard work and integrity. I told her that despite her wealth, my husband was rejecting her, which clearly struck a nerve. Today, I made it clear to Olivia that I was not a gold digger, but a self-sufficient working woman who didn't rely on my husband's money. I told her she had no basis for her accusations. I then demanded that she leave my house immediately before I called the police to have her escorted out. Eventually, she left, but her visit had already left a sour taste in our mouths. While it was an unpleasant experience, at least we managed to assert ourselves and set boundaries. Hopefully, Olivia will remember not to meddle with us and leave us alone in the future. Update 3. Hey everyone, I'm back because something terrible happened involving Olivia. About 2 weeks had passed since her last visit, and Harry and I thought the chapter was finally over. However, I just received a call from my parents an hour ago, and they told me Olivia paid them a visit, and it wasn't good. Olivia barged into their house and insulted them, calling them terrible parents who raised a gold-digging and conniving person like me. She said hurtful things about me, but what's most upsetting is how she attacked my parents. Olivia told my mother that if she had been a better parent who spent more time at home raising us instead of working, maybe we would have turned out better. She also insulted my dad again for his profession, implying that his daughters were as dirty as the trash he cleaned up. My parents were almost in tears recounting what Olivia said, and I couldn't contain my anger. I'm currently at work, unable to do anything, but once I'm done for the day, I'm heading straight to Olivia's house to confront her. She needs to be put in her place for disrespecting my parents in their own home. I texted Harry about the situation, but he's busy with work and hasn't replied yet. I don't necessarily want him to come with me, but I've informed him so he won't be caught off guard if Olivia reaches out to him, upset about our confrontation. Update 4. Hi everyone, I'm back after confronting Olivia at her house a few hours ago. And let me tell you, it was incredibly satisfying to let her have it. When I arrived, Olivia smirked as she opened the door, but I lost my temper right then and there. I pushed past her and went inside, demanding to know if she had visited my parents and said those awful things. She admitted to it, looking pleased with herself, which only fueled my anger. I yelled at her loudly, calling her a hypocrite and a failure as a mother for not prioritizing Harry's happiness over her own selfish desires. I even made a harsh comment about her deceased husband, which made her start crying. I continued berating her for several minutes until I ran out of steam. Seeing her break down was oddly satisfying after all the pain she caused me and my family. After leaving Olivia's house, I returned home, and Harry came back shortly after. He had left work early, assuming I'd be at Olivia's, but by the time he arrived, I had already left. When he entered Olivia's house, he found her crying on the couch, knowing that I had confronted her. Harry surprised me by expressing pride in me for standing up for myself and not allowing anyone to walk over me. He hugged me, apologized for his mother's behavior toward my parents, and then told me that he had a final conversation with Olivia. He made it clear that we would have no further contact with her and that we pursue a restraining order if she bothered us again. When Harry asked Olivia about what I had said, she expected him to defend her and criticize me. But Harry disappointed her by standing by my side. He explained that he supported me because I was right and had never intentionally hurt Olivia, unlike her treatment of me. Harry walked out of Olivia's house despite her protests, affirming his commitment to me. We're still attending marriage counseling, and things are going well. Now we know we have each other's backs forever, which is all I ever really wanted.